For now, this is his motto.
What your mind can believe, your body can achieve.
Pain turned into a reminder of resilience. When the waves knock you down, you can get back up again. In Smithtown, Long Island, Jody Goldberg, Fox News.
The Edge at 11 starts.
These are places that we go to feel connected, to feel safe, to be together. But today, this place has been shattered by bullets and broken glass.
Tonight on The Edge, we're continuing our team coverage on the deadly shooting at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township. And right now, we want to get you up to speed on the latest details coming out of Genesee County following that deadly attack on a church over the weekend. Tonight, 4 people have died and 8 others are recovering in the hospital. And that happened after a 40-year-old Marine veteran from Burton drove his pickup truck into the front of the church.
Once inside, he started shooting at churchgoers and proceeded to set the building on fire, burning it to the ground. Within 8 minutes, he was shot and killed by police.
And tonight, as the Grand Blanc Township community starts the slow process of healing, we are starting to hear stories from those close by when the tragedy struck.
Let's get live to Fox News' Dave Spencer. He is outside the Church of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township. Dave.
Yeah, this church is tucked away in a neighborhood, and then not far from that is a place where people do their shopping. So imagine this, it's Sunday morning rather, 10:30 in the morning. You're just going to the store to get a bite to eat at the bagel place, and you hear the unmistakable sound of a crash into a building. And then, seconds later, you hear the sound of gunshots, and your brain is trying to process all this as emergency responders are arriving on scene, and then smoke is starting to fill the air. That's the reality for a young couple that I spoke with earlier tonight who say this is all happening in their hometown, and they couldn't process it, and it was hard to find the words to put into what they were seeing and what they were hearing into real life here, because it's an uneasy feeling of hearing those gunshots and seeing smoke and happening in your backyard. No one wants to think it can happen here, and when it does, what happens next? So those are questions the community is now having to come to terms with.
A message people should take away from this watching tonight?
Yes, that the healing that is needed today only comes from God. And then when we go to Him and saying, Lord, we're frustrated, we're just dying inside, and we need you to help.
All right, that was a sound from a different story that was going to air in a little bit, but basically to sum up what they were saying is that they thought immediately of their children and trying to explain that to them and what was happening, and obviously they were still processing it in the 24 hours that it was all occurring as best they could. So not having school today for these people, they had to sit down with their loved ones and their children and try the best to explain to them why this is happening and why this continues to happen. And those are answers that nobody wants to have right now, or conversations that nobody needs to have or should have but needs to have. And that's why school was canceled, and grief counselors are on hand here in Grand Blanc Township to make that a little easier. They're also asking for the community as a whole, for the country even, if you're a person of faith, to pray for them this evening. Reporting live in Grand Blanc Township, Dave Spencer on The Edge.
I thought it was rather striking to hear Sheriff Swanson of Genesee County earlier say that it was the children, the smallest of the kids who will go to school, that knew immediately when they were taken out of that church, when they were evacuating, how to leave, because they've been through drills like that before, whereas some of the adults had not.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. In fact, I have children that are school age, and they go through these lockdown drills, and they have those, and they're in place in school. And then to think that it happens in a place of worship, and to hear the victims' ages now ranging still in the hospital from 6 to 76, your heart goes out to everyone involved, everyone in that church, everyone in this community, and the community at large.
We're all thinking about Grand Blanc tonight. Dave Spencer for us live. Thank you.
He said was anger, but it was not, I mean, it was animus, but there was nothing reflected of an intent.
A Burton City Council candidate shocked to find out he had spoken to the shooter less than a week before he carried out his attack. Now, Chris Johns claims he was campaigning last week when he stopped at the shooter's home on Atherton Road. During their conversation, the shooter vented to Johns about the LDS Church before telling him that Mormons are, quote, Antichrist. John says he's shocked at what happened, but saw nothing that indicated the shooter would actually carry out an attack.
We all went in different directions, helped different people. And then like 10 to 15 minutes into that, another manager pulled us aside and said that the administrator said that we had to leave. Hospitals were the ones making the decision.
Yeah, striking nurses speaking out after they rushed to help the shooting victims but were turned away. The nurses are striking from Henry Ford Genesis Hospital. The nurses instead headed to the church itself to try and help those victims. Hospital officials say bringing too many workers into a fluid emergency situation could have compromised care. Nearly 750 nurses have been on strike since Labor Day.
And tonight an entire community came together, lifting one another up in prayer and underscoring the importance of their faith.
That's where we find Fox News' Dave Kinchin. He joins us live. Dave, you spoke to organizers of a church service honoring those victims, doing exactly what those folks in the church on that Sunday were doing already when this all happened.
Yeah, that's why this is so sobering for many members of Faith Lutheran Church of Grand Blanc that held the prayer service, one of many set throughout the week. You know, faith is one of those things that looks a little different to everybody depending on who you are, depending on what your faith is and what your journey is in that faith. But it's something that everyone here seems to be calling upon, and they're doing it in different ways. We'll go to video right now of Faith Lutheran Church of Grand Blanc, where just a little while ago there was that very emotional and very solemn prayer service that took place with people who were deeply shaken. You could see it in their eyes. Also, therapy dogs on hand and comfort dogs brought in to help many cope with all of this. Meantime, another man is doing it in a way you've probably seen before. Excuse me. Dan Beasley is known for carrying a gigantic wooden rolling cross around to scenes of tragedy like the one here in Grand Blanc. You may have seen him if you were at the Michigan State shooting scene in the days after that tragedy that happened a few years ago. We talked with him and a pastor heading up that prayer service tonight. A message people should take away from this watching tonight?
Yes, that the healing that is needed today only comes from God. And then when we go to him and saying, Lord, we're frustrated, we're just dying inside, and we need you to help us. And he wraps his loving arms around us and says, I'm here. I understand. You're going to be okay.
The cross is a message of hope, healing, and love to a community that just doesn't understand this is such a tragedy that something like this would happen. On top of the shooting, then there's a fire. The whole church is destroyed. These people that go to this church they're just completely, totally devastated, along with the community. I do it because God's asked me to do it, okay? He's just simply asked me to be a lampstand for this message, and he does the rest. He does all the heavy lifting. I'm just got to hold it up.
Yeah, definitely like his outlook there. You know, this is something where a lot of people are calling for prayers for the first responders, for the investigators dealing with this very difficult scene, to look at the doctors, the heroes who tried to save as many lives as they could as they were triaging and handling the wounded. We heard from one of the doctors earlier today at that press conference. And, this is a very tight-knit area. I worked in TV news up here about 20 years ago. Can't believe it's been that long, but this is a very tight-knit, close community. That really can be said for all of Genesee County, and there's going to be more prayer services and vigils and many people reaching out, raising money for the victims, doing whatever they can in their way in the days to come. For now, we're live in Grand Blanc. Dave Kinchin on The Edge.
And Dave, because it is such a tight-knit community, a small area there where a lot of people really know each other, this is going to change them forever. It's going to change people in the Genesee County area who go attend church. They're always going to probably be looking over their shoulders and feeling a bit uneasy, at least for a while. This is going to make an impact for some time.
It really is, especially that next Sunday that comes around, the first Sunday a week after this took place. We did talk with that pastor there at Faith Lutheran of Grand Blanc, and he said, we have a plan. We do have a plan to deal with acts of violence. It's something that no church, no whatever your faith, whatever your religious orientation, no house of worship wants to deal with, but you have to have plans. Many religious sites, churches and such, they do have meetings, regular meetings with local police departments that patrol their area, and that could step up now in terms of with these churches looking at their safety plans in light of this tragedy, no doubt.
Yeah, many people think they really don't have a choice. It's happened too many times. Dave Kincher reporting live for us. Thank you.
Yeah.
And stay with Fox 2 for continuing coverage of the Grand Blanc Township church shooting. You can also head to our website, fox2detroit.com, for a breakdown of what we know right now.
I'm meteorologist Rick Fluterman. High pressure still parked over the central Great Lakes. Now, we do have high clouds off to our east through New York and Pennsylvania, but for us, it's going to be day after day of dry weather. It is going to cool off just a bit for Wednesday and for Thursday. Live pictures right now here in Southfield. It is quiet out there. 82 degrees, the afternoon high today. Not close to a record, but cooling off now. A lot of us are going to end up in the middle 50s with a very light breeze out there. 55 Traverse City, 52 in Port Huron. We're at 65 degrees, but high pressure continues to move across the central Great Lakes. As a result, it's going to be a dry stretch that goes into the weekend and beyond. Comfortable tonight down to 56. Tomorrow we're back to 79. Plenty of sunshine. And then look at this 7-day forecast. It does cool off a bit Wednesday and Thursday, but for the weekend ahead, once again, near 80 degrees. Roop, another check at 4 a.m.
All right, as one church heals, tragedy strikes at another miles away. Coming up, our Lauren Edwards tells us how Cross Point Church is coping after divine intervention prevented a mass shooting.